Hello friends, good afternoon to a few and good evening to others. Welcome to the STP training webinar series. The topic for which today is making products that matter, value-driven development in practice. Our speaker for the day is Marcel Quakernack. I'm Smita Mishra and I'm a tester myself and a sustainability enthusiast. And I'm super excited to host you all and Marcel Quakernack on our STP webinars. Let me start the webinar on a happy note. I'm indeed glad to update you that we have now published the full program for our next conference, Spring 2020 STPCon, which is coming up at San Diego from March 30th to April 2nd. You can avail the early bird pricing until 14th of February. Teams and alumni registrations can save even more. For any further queries with respect to sponsoring, attending, or team registrations, etc., send an email to info@softwaretestpro.com and visit the conference site stpcon.com for all the details. In 2020, we are inviting proposals for webinars from all of you. So this is not how we used to do earlier. We used to select people on our choice, but now it's open for all of you. And the good part is that this shall be open all year round, so you can submit anytime you're ready. But we will begin filling the slots as soon as we come across meaningful content and inspiring speakers. We have already filled up our slots for the first quarter, that is January to March. So if you have an idea and wish to be considered for the webinars second quarter onwards, do send in your proposals ASAP. All the details along with the submission form are at the link given on the screen. Please go through them. And should you need help in mentoring or presenting or have any other general queries, again, please do reach out to us at info@softwaretestpro.com. We have a pool of senior speakers who are always happy to support on reviewing, especially if this is the first time you're proposing. In case you have recommendations on topics or speakers, do email them to us. We will be happy to hear them from you. So let me quickly tell you about this upcoming webinar, The Impact of AI on Enterprise Testing, on 8th of January 2020. The speaker is Raj Subramanian, who is a principal consultant at Chai Latte Consulting. In this talk, he will cover the basics of AI, existing problems with testing, discuss the key ways software testing can benefit from AI, and the challenges involved in implementing AI-based solutions. The link is up for you to review and register, so please do go for it. And if you are on Twitter, please do share the conference and call details, call for paper information, and also about this webinar with your followers and connections. You can add STP's Twitter handle to your tweets, which is @SoftwareTestPro. Please do add the hashtag STP webinar to your tweets, and you can do the same for your Facebook posts. All right, let's get started with the webinar today. Welcome, Marcel. We are very excited to have you with us today. And let me quickly introduce you for all of us here. Marcel Quakernack is a test professional with 20 years of experience in testing, QA release, management, agile, DevOps coaching, specialized in helping teams to develop products that matter, focused on value and quality consistently, and raising innovative capabilities while doing so. The right product in the right way. He is a hands-on expert and an inspirational lead and coach, a true value-driven and DevOps evangelist. He's experienced in helping organizations to benefit from user story mapping, specification by example, test-driven development, behavior-driven development, and test automation and CI/CD. His motto is start with the end user in mind, aim for the MVP, that is minimum viable product, increase experimenting, embrace fast failure, and if it is difficult, practice more often. Currently, he is a QA, Agile, and DevOps consultant at Shell. So now let's start learning how to make products that matter and put value-driven development in practice. Marcel, the floor is all yours now, and I'm going to transfer the control to you.
Thank you, Smita, for the introduction. Thank you also, Software Test Professional, for the opportunity to host my talk on this webinar. So today I'm going to talk about how to make products that matter, and I'd like to call that value-driven development. I'm going to explain why it is important to have your teams convert to the practice of value-driven development, and how they can make products that matter. So I have already been introduced somewhat. Let me see how I can switch to the next screen. Here we are. So this is me. Very nicely mentioned my last name. I guess that's difficult for you guys. I call it Kwakenaak, you call it Kwakenaak, I believe. Well, close enough. And I'm part of the Creating Value Alliance. So back in the beginning of my career, when I learned about that phrase from Kent Beck, I started calling me a test-driven professional. Really like the phrase, and I had the idea that it suited my work nicely. But after some time, I evolved a bit, and my thinking was in the line that it's not really about testing what we are doing, it's about quality. So I started calling myself a quality-driven professional a couple of years after the beginning of my career. But I since then have learned a few times, and one time it was quite an embarrassing, painful learning, that it is not really about quality. So quality is no guarantee for users benefiting from what they are supposed to benefit. So over time, I've learned that it is about user value, much more than product quality. And this is what my talk today is about. So I'm going to explain, based on my own personal learnings, how I came to my insights, and how it helped me to evolve in that value-driven professional that I'm now being for a couple of years. So my most painful learning was in the beginning of my career, where I worked as a test analyst, or perhaps even a test engineer in the Rotterdam Container Terminal of the ECT, Europe Combined Terminal. And this is a huge operation. So in the Western world, I believe it is one of the largest container terminals there is. There are a few in China that are bigger, but this one is huge. And at some point, we had to enter a whole bunch of robots to keep the large number of volume operational. So there are so many containers transported through the Rotterdam harbor. We had to build a terminal based on robots. And one of the main robots you can see over here, it's the orange card, which is called an AGV, an automated guided vehicle. And as you can see, the automated guided vehicle are driving containers at the quay, between the quay cranes, which you also can see, and the stack, which is not yet seen. And in the beginning, this is around 2001, 2002, those AGVs would drive on a fixed grid line. As you can see, the dark markings on the quay, those are the markings created by the AGVs, where they drive on that fixed grid pattern. And at some point, this fixed routing system was considered a problem. And it is a problem when an AGV breaks down for whatever reason, malfunction or out of gas, and the AGVs driving behind it had to wait until the broken down AGV was either repaired or it was removed. And a series of AGVs waiting behind an AGV that needs to be repaired is hindering the terminal performance. And terminal performance for the bosses of the container terminal is everything. So when terminal performance is high, they make money, and when it is low, they basically lose money. So it was decided that we needed a different routing system, and that was called the project Dynacore. And Dynacore was a project where we brought in the process controls system real-time calculation, where the AGVs had the ability to calculate a new route around any obstacle that may occur. And it sounded simple enough, but it was quite difficult, and we worked on it for months and months. And we invented basically our own way of agile work. So we have never heard of the word agile. It was out there, but it hadn't reached us in Europe, in the Netherlands. But we basically worked with DevOps teams, with developers, with testers, with operational people in weekly sprints, and we had a demo to the end users every Friday. And at one point, the Dynacore system was working so good, so well, and the end users liked it. So it was decided to bring it live. And we had a celebration with champagne and all festive events that are really not common, especially not in Holland, which is not that much of a festive country, I may add. Some of you may know this, and if not, then it's me just explaining how it is. So that was a remarkable Broad Life, a launch where we had a real festive feeling about it. Job well done. The odd thing was that about a year after we have brought this live, I was in the operational terminal room where this feature was being used. And this guy stepped to me, hey, you're Marcel, right? Marcel Kwijkenijk, you're involved. You were involved in Dynacore. So whatever happened to Dynacore? And this question struck me like a slap in the face. So I was just stuttering. What shouldn't I be asking you? What happened to Dynacore? And I said, well, I don't know what happened to Dynacore. We don't use it anymore. So I was flabbergasted. Is the proper word, and I just had to ask around, especially the users that accepted the system. So I looked them up and asked them, hey guys, what happened? I just got a question, what happened to Dynacore? So this cannot be right. So you're using Dynacore? And they explained to me, yes, well, sorry, no, we don't use it anymore. After some time, we decided we didn't like it that much. It wasn't that much of a contribution, and most of the users find it a bit cumbersome. So it was basically stopped using. And this is where I learned, we as a team and I as a person, as a professional, I had a problem. And my problem, when I analyzed it for some time, was basically that I have been, and we have been, too self-centered. We have been too much absorbed with the products that we own. And we were mostly interested to find out how the technology works. So you could say we were all quality driven. That was what drove us as a team and as individuals. But the solution was that we had to convert ourselves. We had to reinvent ourselves. We had to become end user centric. We had to be focusing on the users, that we would find out how users work instead of technology works, and we had to become value driven. So if we would be able to twist our thinking, to turn around our thinking into the right side, then we would be delivering, we would be focusing on delivering value. So think of the end user first, start with the end user in mind. So I've learned basically quite early in my beginning, after I've called myself a quality-driven professional, that quality is not the same as value. So quality is something that you can add, you can connect to a product. A product can be of high quality. A product can even have a lifetime guarantee. So users are something different. And a user will never get a lifetime guarantee on any product. I've never heard of it, will not happen. Both are important, but we need to start, that was my learning, we need to start thinking about what users value and how they think, how they operate. So another example perhaps to explain a bit further how my learning came to me, how my learning landed with me. So when you think of two really high quality bikes, I came up with two examples, Google for them, then those two bikes are examples of top of the line quality bikes available on the market. They are basically made of all the best parts you can find. The best carbon frame, the best gear sets, the best ball bearings, the best whatever. But they are constructed, as you can see, quite differently. So two examples, no doubt about it, of two top-of-the-line quality bicycles. Still, which one of those bikes would be valuable, would be valued? Well, in face-to-face, I would now look around the hall and ask for somebody to respond. A bit difficult in the webinar, but that is basically depending. It depends on the users. So those guys in the picture is Team Ineos. It's one of the most professional cycling teams in the world. For them, that question, which is the high value bike, is so simple. It's only one, and that's the bike on the left. That is the only bike valuable to them because it's the only one they can win races and they can win money. Their particular skill is not suited for the other bike. It's only suited for this bike. So from the user perspective, it is real easy to mention which bike is valuable. But there you have it, the user perspective. And my key learning, where it all came together, and I really took some time to bring this all together, is the diagram making products that matter. Also the label of this talk. So on the one axis I've placed quality, and on the other axis I've placed value. So product quality versus user value. And let me explain this a bit further, because in the right-hand corner, that's where we all expect, that's what I've learned, where most of our feature launches will end up. And it is the diamond desired situation, where we add a feature to a product, or we add a new product to a product line, which is of tested quality. So quality is good, is raised, it's in the high end, and we expect that raised quality will be valued by the users. And we do have very nice examples of it, but we also have, unfortunately, examples where quality is raised and value is not added. So those are not the diamonds. I call them ghosts. And ghosts is basically something that floats in your system without being touched and without being used, like a ghost. So it may be of quality, but no user is really interested in that feature, like Dynacore. And I call them, it's a miss. It's a miss. It's a waste of time. Ghosts. It can be even worse, and this is not that uncommon. We know this, right? So when you launch a feature with a bit too much haste, too low quality, testing was not executed good or not good enough, we are creating waste. And that waste may affect the existing product. It may even foul up the existing product. We need to take care of waste, right? Like we need to take care of waste in our real life. If you mess up kitchen or whatever, you just have to take care and clean up. And the most interesting part of this diagram is perhaps the right lower corner, where you have your flash of lightning or your shockwave, mostly this is where disruption happens. So let me give you guys a few examples of these abstract pictograms. So one of my favorite examples of a real diamond launch, is the Apple iPod. It was an MP3 player, and it was launched in around 2001, if I'm not mistaken. It was not the first MP3 player on the market, but it was at the moment by far the best. So Apple was able to raise the quality of this product compared to the existing MP3 players, but they also were able to raise the value. They were able to make a small fit in your pocket MP3 player, which was basically smaller than all existing portable MP3 players on the market. That could only existing players could only hold about 30 minutes of songs. And this player, and it was advertised in that way, it is like 1,000 songs in your pocket. And that was unheard of. It was a complete revolution of the MP3 player market, and it even made this product into a real must-have device. So Apple did a real great job. With hindsight, even better. Analysts at the time didn't think much of it. They said, well, who's going to care about this? They have only about 5% of the market. So it was laughed at a bit in the media at the time. But they made this beautiful, small, real Apple-like device. Even now, I would say this is looking really appealing. It has a simple user interface. And all the Apple qualities that we are now so familiar with emerged basically with the introduction of the iPod player. So a true diamond launch, I would say. This product is not nearly as well known as the Apple iPod. It's a Garmin cycling computer. It's a device I use many times a day. As you may notice, I'm a bit of a cycling enthusiast, so I use the cycle example and now a cycle computer example. And I bought this cycling computer a couple of years ago because it was the one and only recommended product on the market to guide your training exercises. So it's a real simple device, and it measures your speed and your distance, your average speed, your heartbeat rate, and all the things that you would like to measure to monitor your training and the progress in your training. So what happened over time is, and I don't really understand why, but Garmin kept launching features to this product on a real high pace. And they made this product ever more complicated to use, and they also made it basically unstable and unreliable. So I don't know exactly the frequency, but I would say at least once a week, probably a couple of times a week, they have an update. And when you switch your device on, you switch it on when you want to do some training, it may notice some of the downloads that are available, and it will start downloading those available downloads immediately without any user interference. You don't need to approve, it just starts to download. And when it is downloading, you cannot use it. So that is every now and then quite annoying because you were about to start a training exercise. And furthermore, when the download is rather large, it is going to consume quite a bit of battery power. And every now and then it consumes so much battery power that you don't have enough left for a training exercise planned after. And loading the battery to a higher capacity again is going to take you some time. So you need to reschedule your training, which is basically what you don't want to do. You want to start using your bike whenever you have plans to do so. And not so long ago, I spoke a reseller, a bike shop owner, and he explained to me that Garmin is now offering about a 3-day training course to explain to that reseller the capabilities of this product. So he said, no, thank you. I'm not going to spend 3 days. I'm not going to close my shop for 3 days to learn all the capabilities of this product. So if you would look at the reviews of this product, on the plus side, it's always features. So it has so many features, you can do so many things with it. But on the downside, ever more and more, you see appearing issues with user friendliness, reliability, performance, and those things. And when I listen to my friends, many of them are to alternative products. And when I look at those alternative products, it's not that they are winning of Garmin because of their own doing. They are winning of Garmin because Garmin is destructing its own value. So I would be really interested to talk to those Garmin guys and learn what they are trying to do. It may be that they are blind for what they are doing. It may be they are thinking in a different way. So to me, a real clear example, I could give you some more, but this is close to me, of where they raise quality, ever more features. It can do many things, but it is not appealing to the users. So the third example is the waste example, and I was thinking, should I show this example, because we do have some people from the States, well, maybe many people from the States on the call. And to me, it is even it's embarrassing to look what happened with a great company like Boeing. So personally, I have an interest in aviation, and I think Boeing is one of the most successful aviation companies in the world. And the 737 is definitely the most produced airplane. Over 10,000 copies were produced. So with the Boeing 737 MAX 8, that's the exact label of the vehicle, of the flight machine shown, Boeing intended to reduce the fuel consumption with the use of more efficient engines. And the more efficient engines had a particular need. They needed to be installed a bit more to the front of the airplane. And the effect of those engines installed on more on the front of the airplane was that it showed problems while it was being handled at slow speed. And well, slow speed is what you have when you take off. And the response of the plane with the engines a bit more to the front was that it had a tendency to tilt the nose, to lift up the nose too high. So Boeing came up with a solution to correct this high lift, which is called MCAS. It's an MCAS. It stands for Augmented System. I'm not exactly sure what the abbreviation is, but that is a software system that is correcting the nose to a bit more a downward position to correct that lift of the nose, too high lift during takeoff. So they work on the system, but I must say, I don't know, but I must say they have not completely tested it. That's at least my assessment. So when you listen to the stories now in the media on the behavior of this plane, and we all know there were 2 horrible crashes, right? That Boeing explains that the team was not well aware of the behavior of the system and didn't know how to deal with it. So then I would say, well, Boeing, isn't that your responsibility if you launch a feature that has that behavior? And the story was that the EMSA system, when it receives incorrect signals, it pushes the nose down. Also when it is not in takeoff at all. So it can happen even in flight when the system receives incorrect signals. It starts pushing the nose down. And if you know exactly what is happening, you can correct that down push apparently. But I would say, couldn't you have made the system in a way that it only pushes a nose down when the nose is too high and not when a plane is in normal flight? Couldn't you make any algorithm where if a nose is too high, then push it down, and if it's not too high, then do nothing? Something like that, real simple. Test it thoroughly and prevent to launch this poor quality of a feature that now nose pushing down feature, because it is a terrible loss of user value, even of user life, and I cannot imagine how much stress it is causing at Boeing itself. So not only loss of user value, also loss of business value on a incredible scale. So my Fourth example of the shockwave, the disruption is one of my favorite products, which is, I'm not sure if you recognize this, I guess so, is Spotify, a music streaming service. And some of my friends, so I guess everybody that I know uses Spotify, but some of my friends are having some issues with the quality of Spotify. They say that the music, when they listen to it at Spotify, it's lacking high tones and low tones, so it's poor on the high and the low frequencies, and it sounds a bit muffled. So personally, my hearing is probably not as good as their hearing. I don't notice that it has poor quality. So I would say if it does, it is a great trade-off with user value. So what I really like of Spotify is that you can operate it in your entire house with your mobile phone in your hand. Everybody can operate it, so you can take over control from other family members. And you can browse around Spotify. You can listen to related artists. You can basically explore what music is out there in a real user-friendly way. So what Spotify did great with the streaming software that they brought to the market is they first made sure they had the industry on their side, so they had access to all those songs. And the other thing they did really beautiful was that what I call themselves the freemium model. Service for free, but you would be annoyed by constant advertisements. So most of the people that started using it immediately within no time would subscribe to it, which is basically very well done by Spotify. So it is something that brought life back to the music industry while it was harmed a lot by piracy. It started focusing on the users. That's basically what my story is about. It added value to the users. It added value to the artists. They were making money again, and it revived the entire industry. So beautiful example. So with these learnings, the making products that matter diagram now sorted out, I basically decided I had to reinvent my own profession. And I started to ask myself fundamental questions. And one of the most fundamental questions is, why do we develop? So we develop because we like to create cool technology. Well, at least that's applicable for most of the developers and testers that I know personally. But why should we develop? We should develop to create happy users. This is a picture of my daughter. I asked permission to use this, so no privacy violated over here. It is allowed, and she was so excited at one point when we flew to America for them, as a matter of fact. And this is what it is about. So why is that what it is about? Why should we create happy users? Because it gives us a sense of purpose. We know what we are doing. And if we have that sense of purpose, we can earn a living. And if we can earn a living, we can do what we want to do, which is creating cool technology. So you're back at square one, but you have turned around your thinking. And this is basically what I've learned that is helping me. So how do we think? Another example. We are just wired to think with ourselves in the center of the universe. We think inside out, and the world apparently that's how we are wired, is evolving around us. But that's not how we should think. We should turn it again around. We should realize that we are definitely not the center of the universe. We are that tiny speck on the outside of the universe, and we are evolving around that center where our users should be. That's how we should think. That outside-in thinking. Start with the end user in mind, and then try to figure out how we can add value, how we can create value. So some other questions. How do we work? We work on the products that we own. We try to raise quality of the products that we own. We are very much absorbed by raising the velocity of our teams, and we try to deliver ever more output. Again, this is not how we should work, according to my learnings. So we should focus on the end user that we serve. We should try. Oh, now I blocked my my control because I had to shift the control panel of the GoToWebinar. We should focus on the value that we deliver. We should try to increase our learning and our team's learning, team learnings, and we should be aiming to deliver benefits to our users. If we do this, if we have the ability to convert ourselves to the elements on the right side of the screen, we get the elements at the left side of the screen basically for free. So we will raise the quality of the products, we will increase velocity, and we will deliver output if we focus on end users, on value, on learning, and on benefits. So how do we know what to do? So we have learned to work with the backlog and with the Kanban. I really like the Kanban in many situations. It has such a good outcome on how teams operate. It makes teams responsible for their own work, for their own doings. But I've talked with quite some teams. I've also heard quite some teams complain about the product backlog. So they say, they explain basically when product A is done, and we are working on B and C, and B and D and C and E is on the to-do list, and when F emerges on the backlog, it may be that they then only learn that F is interdependent on feature A. It is related to feature A. And the complaint of those teams then is, well, if we would have known that F and A were interconnected, then we would have designed and developed product A differently. We didn't, so we couldn't design it differently. We were not aware of feature F at all. And now when it emerged, we have to redo some of the stuff that we did on A, which could have easily be prevented. So how should we know? How should our teams know what to do? And I have learned to work with a methodology called user story mapping. It is brought to us since 2014, not that long ago, by a guy, Jeff Patton. He's an American. And it is a real simple and elegant process, and it works everywhere. I have applied it in every assignment that I work on since then, and everybody likes it. So let me explain how this works. It basically starts with a backbone of a business process, which is something that you can share with each other in about 90 seconds, that elevator pitch. So you describe how the process functions and the objective that it is meeting, which is adding business value. And when you zoom a bit further on the details of the process, you can make a basic, simple sequence of activities that are executed in that process. So the activities are executed by users that are connected, that are responsible for those activities. And when you ask those users to brainstorm what they would like, they can come up with user stories. Well, that's what we are all familiar with. We are collecting user stories. But I would say creating this bigger picture, this user story map, where you have combined in a session real users, real end users and developers in there, this visualization is going to help everybody. So the user stories are connected to the activities. They are listed below, and you can even sort them on priority. So you can put your most prioritized user story on top of a stack of user stories. So when you do some slicing and merging, you may find that you may have discovered the MVPs within those user stories. And an MVP is, in this picture, a set of related user stories that have a high benefit return for a relative low effort. So this is basically the process. It's from my side, it's highly recommended. I really cannot stress how much this is helping me. But I also have learned that when you start talking about MVP, that you need to have some explanation on what the MVP is. And when I ask this in talks, the most given answer of what is the MVP is that people shout, it's the skateboard, the picture of the skateboard. I'm not sure if it's well known in with you guys, but it is that most common picture that's used over here in Europe. What I really like is the original definition given to the guy that coined the term MVP. That's also an American, Frank Robertson, and he came up with this definition in 2001. So it is as simple as it is. Too large or too small a product are big problems. The MVP is the difficult to determine sweet spot between them. And that's exactly what it is. So it isn't that some things need to be smaller or some things need to be larger. It is about finding, it is about exploring and finding, discovering that sweet spot. And when you talk to users and you have developers and users talking about what the MVP would be, at some point you know you have found it. And it is never the same. So it is always an open quest. So what would you say is the MVP for a chef? My wife is somewhat of a cook. I really like what she's producing, and she also is watching. She's always watching the cook shows, and I've seen all too often that the most recommended product, if you want to be a chef, you should start buying a simple chef knife. Well, it's not that simple. It's a highly technical device. It has perfect steel and a real sharp edge, I suppose. I don't know those things, but this is the MVP for chefs. If you want to start becoming a chef, this is your first step. It is the sweet spot that will help you to move on this path. So the MVP for a container terminal, which I started my talk on in the beginning, is something completely different. And it is what needs to be debated with the owners, with the guys that order the terminal. But if you have those two waterside, so this is the waterside, this is where your big vessel is at. When you have those number one and number two flow lines operational, you would basically be able to open business. The rest you can do manual. So if you have 1 and 2 with the automated guided vehicle, when you have those in operation, you can be in business. So how do we test? We test by evaluating quality. It's a nice example of test automation. It's completely different what we consider test automation. Still it is test automation, but how should we test? Is there anybody, and now I'm going to ask for a question anyways, is there anybody that has any idea what this device is? Have you guys ever seen this device? I'm not going to wait too long, but if there's anybody with an answer for this device, I don't see anything popping up. So this is a wind tunnel. It's one of the earliest prototype wind tunnels, and it was in fact created by the Wright brothers. And when they created this device, it accelerated their entire development effort, which was basically creating a flight machine, which was how they called it at the time. So with this device, this wind tunnel, they would be able to collect accurate data on wings and on propellers. They didn't need to test every single new version of a set of wings and a set of propellers. They could immediately collect data with this device on what wings were an improvement. They could see the behavior of the airflow, and the same for propellers. So with this device, they were able to collect accurate data, and this helped them to learn and to drive and accelerate the entire development effort. I am absolutely convinced that without this pure test-driven development approach, they would not have won that race for the flight machine. So this is the Kent Beck of the guy who invented or reinvented, as he puts it, test-driven development. I guess he would have liked this example. So it is a real old school example of test-driven development, and there are many more, but this one is again, it is very appealing because we technicians, we are all, well, the most of them that I know are very much into flight and aviation. So the key takeaways of this talk is we need to connect with our real end users on a regular basis, not once a year or once a month. Well, once a month would be not too bad, but I would say ideally it would be once a sprint or even once a week. If you have real regular connects with end users and you talk to them, or more important, you listen to them, you can explore what they value. So exploring user value is the first step of the thing that I've learned myself to do. If I have that opportunity to regularly talk to real end users and explore what they value, collectively, we will every now and then, on a regular basis, discover the next MVP. So the next most valuable step forward. And if we discover the next most valuable step forward, and we have that test-driven development approach, like the wind tunnel in our mind, we can experiment and we can learn and we can make the product work. And if we can do that, then value will emerge. So this is what I call the value-driven framework, which is the backbone of value-driven development. So who can do this, that value-driven development? It may sound like something for which you need super skills, but who can do this? So I would say anybody listening, anybody that I talk to, anybody involved in development, you can do this. So how does it look when it all comes together? So here you have the entire set of things that me and some friends that I've been working on several projects that we have learned to benefit from. So again, on the left side, you see those 4 elements of the value-driven framework: explore, discover, experiment, and value. And we need to explore in close connection with the end users why certain products matter and other products don't. So we need to start everything we do with the end user in mind. And when we have the ability to talk to end users and listen to them, we should try to make that bigger picture with the Jeff Patton methodology called user story mapping. And when we have those user stories that may add value to the users mapped out on that bigger picture, we have the ability to discover the most valuable MVP continuously. Keep listening, keep collecting user stories, and keep thinking collectively what the best next step may be. So the 4th element is specification by example, that's brought to us by Gojko Oudsik. And I really love this. This was an eye-opener. So when you talk and listen to the users and they provide their key examples, those are the most valuable test cases you can think of that will help to learn if that user value is emerging. So step 5 is that test-driven development approach from Ken Beck. And to me, test-driven development, as I already explained, is not something that is only for developers. It's for all of us. So if we are involved with the entire development team and we help the entire development team to collect data, we can accelerate that development. So the CI/CD pipeline, I'm going to keep that short, but that is really another accelerator for the team. It is setting the team free. If multiple teams, and in many cases this is the case, are contributing user stories to an MVP, they need to assemble the MVP and they need to collectively test the MVP before you can release it. And you need to consider what release cadence would be helpful, would be of added value to the users. So don't overflow them like perhaps Carmen is doing, but come up with a conscious cadence. And the two final steps of the value-driven development model is collect user feedback continuously. So I would say that's a valuable extension to the CI/CD pipeline if we would add the CF element to the pipeline, where we will be able to monitor if users are using the new features, then that would help enormously. And if we learn that value is not created but it is being destructed, or value is not emerging as we thought it would be, then we need to give it attention and restore the value or clean it up. So that's the full model. One fun aspect I discovered earlier this year is that Google is also apparently very much into continuous feedback and continuous cleanup. And I found that they have a Google graveyard where they have those, it looked like simple tombstones, where they have listed their products that at one point they brought live, but they have stopped, they removed them from operation, and they don't apparently feel shame about it. So they are quite proud about it, which brought an idea to my mind. Every now and then, it could be a fun event to have a feature funeral. So it is hard as it is. When we have worked with blood and tears and sweat to certain features, but we need to remove features if they are not adding value. So I would like to bring out your attention to Skunkworks. This is very much for the people in Europe, because I believe in America everybody is well aware of Skunkworks, and have a look at Kelly Johnson's rules. And then you may notice that the Agile Manifesto must have been inspired by this guy, Kelly Johnson. So have a look, Google it up, and see what it is all about. So my final slide, and I can see we have only 5 minutes left on the clock for questions. I would like to ask your attention for a call for papers that the Journal of Creating Value, which I'm involved with, is setting out. So the call for papers is on value creation thinking and software development. And I hope that some of you may feel some inspiration, that you consider yourself also a value thinker, or that thinking is emerging, and then I would like to ask you to have a look at this call for paper. It may interest you. So this is basically my talk. A bit awkward that that is just me sending. I'm used to do live talks, right? And then you also always have some interaction. But so please, questions. Is there any question?
Yes, we do have a couple of questions. I'll quickly ask them to you.
Yes.
How do we ask the users to get the user stories? Are there any planned scientific ways to derive user stories?
So I missed one word in your question. How do we ask users to what?
To get the user stories. Are there any planned scientific ways to define the user stories with respect to users?
So I wouldn't call it a scientific way. To me, it is basically common sense. It is very well articulated in the book by Jeff Patton. But to me, the key word is connect with your users, with your end users, meet them face to face, and listen to them. So if you have a shop selling whatever, then those people, they are also listening to the users. And if you listen to the users, you hear their user stories. So to me, I have been looking for the standard user story format, right? I, as a user, want something so I can, but it's not what it's about. It's about listening to the user story, and when you understand the way they are using your software and the problems that they are dealing with, you will discover valuable steps forward. So I can only say, listen to them and try to explore and discover value.
So at any stage, if we are able
Is
to
it?
interact with the user and pay attention to what they are saying, then
Yes.
we'll probably be able to develop. Okay. The other question is, you were talking about release cadence. Can you explain release cadence a bit more with respect to users?
Well, in some cases, the release cadence can be continuous. You can have hundreds and thousands of releases on a day. But in other cases, when there is some real exposure of a release to certain users, and they need to be taught how to deal with those new features, that's not going to work. Those hundreds or thousands releases a day, and then you may want to think, and you may want to listen again to your users. What can you process? Would it make sense to you if we would release every week? Would it make sense if we would release every 2 weeks or every month? And when you again listen to your users, you will learn what is making sense to them.
Okay.
So that's what I mean with release cadence.
Yeah, that makes sense. Marcel, here is your last question for now. Is there a role for tools to play at any stage, especially at knowing what is working and what is not? For example, A/B testing.
So what was that last? AP testing?
Alpha, beta, A/B.
Right. Yes, right. So I really love tools, and I would say again, explore, if you have the time, all the tools that you run across and that may have some potential value to you. So I really I stepped over it real briefly, the CI/CD pipeline. But it's basically about bringing any tool to your development team to enable them to concentrate on one task at a time. So if you have indeed tools that can help with A/B testing, or with test automation, or with continuous deployment, and they are setting your team free so they can concentrate on the most important task they need to do, which is bringing their creativity to the table and come up with a good solution for the value that we seek to deliver. Then I would say yes, explore and use as much tools as possible.
Well, it was a very insightful session on value-driven development, and especially from a tester's perspective. So thank you. Thank you so much, Marcel. I'm sure our attendees found it very informative and useful too. So thanks again to you, and I hope to see you at STPCon soon.
Well, I hope to see you too, likewise. So again, thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for the invite. Really enjoyed the session. For me, it was a new one, so I've done my bit of talks, but the webinar is also something that I think is a real good way to share knowledge. So thanks again for the opportunity. Thanks everybody for your attention, and please forward your questions if there are any left.
Yes, we'll do that. Surely. Thank you, Marcel. Well, everyone, this concludes our webinar for today. And thank you, everyone, for joining. And more importantly, thank you for being engaging and making the most of the webinar for yourself and for the whole group. If you want to see more such sessions like Marcel and wish to learn more about testing, do join us at STPCon Spring 2020. We have already published the program, and you should be looking at stpcon.com. Do not forget to grab your discounts on early bird tickets, which will be on sale until February 14th, on the Valentine's Day. Again, at any point, should you have any queries or registration on registrations or otherwise, do email them to info@softwaretestpro.com. Also, let me remind you the call for submissions for the webinars for the year 2020 will open all year round. Please do send in your proposals ASAP, like as soon as you possible, and so that you can pick the slots of your choice. Stay tuned for more webinars at softwaretestpro.com. And we have an upcoming webinar, which is the impact of AI enterprise testing on 8th of January 2020. The speaker is Raj Subramanian. He's in fact doing a keynote at the upcoming STPCon, so it will be a great opportunity for you to know and hear him if you haven't already heard him before. He is also a principal consultant at Chai Latte Consulting. In his talk, he will cover the basics of AI, existing problems with testing, discuss the key ways software testing can benefit from AI, and the challenges involved in implementing AI-based solutions. So if you wish to get started with AI-based testing, this is your webinar to go to. Please do sign up, and again, at the same place, softwaretestpro.com. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week ahead. See you all in San Diego in March next year, and keep practicing your testing skills. Thank you.